Welcome back, everyone, to The Search for Clarity. You're here with Richard de Kock, the host, and you'll notice this episode, I've got my Christmas hat on because it's our Christmas special. You'll also notice that I've got this wonderful microphone back. You might have noticed over the last 3 sessions or so, or 4 maybe even, we've had some technical difficulties on audio. I've done my best to cover it up. Maybe you didn't notice. Maybe I did a great job. But we've got that all resolved now, so we're back to our standard format and our standard quality that I like to go by. So fingers crossed, everything works out. I think it shall. We have got a 2-part episode, this time with the lovely Susanna Martinez Denia. Is it Denia or Denia?
Denia, perfect.
Fantastic. Good start. Okay, great. And I'd like to just remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely my own and the individual contributors that I have, and that this podcast's my independent effort and is no way affiliated with any of my employers or clients that I happen to be engaged with. So, Susanna, it's absolutely wonderful to have you joining us today on The Search for Clarity. How are you doing?
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for having me. Loving your hat. I couldn't match the hat, but I'm wearing red to match your Christmas vibe.
I see. I get the vibe. The vibe is definitely there.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it. It's very exciting to have the opportunity to be on your podcast.
No, the honor is all mine. It's lovely to get to learn from the people who are crafting and shaping the future for leadership. So just to introduce you to everyone. So Susanna is an executive coach and founder of Insatiable Leaders, which is a boutique coaching firm that specializes in advancing growth-driven leaders and forward-thinking organizations. She's had 15 years, or over 15 years experience in banking, professional services, people development, and has coached and trained executives at top organizations such as Goldman Sachs, EY, Meta, Google or Alphabet, and PwC. And her focus is really on identifying and mastering 6 key qualities that distinguish leaders as catalysts for transformation. And this is what's covered in a new book that she's released called Insatiable Leaders. I really loved this book. It had a lot of really good reflection points for me going through it. One thing I liked about it was the concept of the fishbowl, Susanna, that you used. I think very often as leaders, we're so caught up in the chaos of the world that we're in. And what you've really masterfully done in this publication is helped you get into the fishbowl. So move yourself and your reflection out of the chaos into your own little environment where we can shape and refine and question and tweak what you're doing. And then you go back into the chaos with hopefully a sharper sword to conquer the day. And I loved that about the book. It had that throughout to make sure that you're really harnessing in a lot of the learnings and so forth. So yeah, the book is about these 6 qualities and how, leaders drive transformation. And that's what we're focusing on today. We're going to be exploring what these mean and how, it shows up for leaders. And just to finish the introduction, so Susanna holds a master's degree in quantitative finance, so she's got a head on her shoulders, and she's a certified coach by the International Coaching Federation, as well as the Institute of Leadership and Management in the UK. So yeah, as I mentioned, absolutely wonderful to have you on the show. And today we're doing this Christmas special because we're wanting to reflect on the year of leadership across 2024. And so to kick us off, Susanna, could you help us understand what are insatiable leaders? What does that mean?
Thank you. So Insatiable Leaders is a concept I came up with as I observed the traits of the leaders that I was more connected to as I coached them. And I saw recurrent traits that I saw in them. And they kept appearing in leaders who were growth-driven leaders, who wanted to drive transformation, who wanted to constantly grow in their careers. So there were common traits that I saw. One of them is being limited, curious, and inquisitive. Another one is being a big thinker, questioning the status quo. Another one is being a bar raiser, raising the standards of excellence and performance. Another trait is being multi-talented and over-scheduled and versatile, so they operate across different domains. Another one, the 5th one, is that determination, that self-reliance to overcome barriers. And the last one is that sense of urgency to step into the future. I must say that it's not impatience, it's really that eagerness to step into a future that they are envisioning and they want to grasp. And this trace is not something that I've aimed to document in a scientific way or in a scientific research. It's just something that recurrently appeared as I had conversations, and I saw in leaders that I was speaking to, and I wanted to put into the world things that I had observed in case leaders with these traits, in a degree or another, would resonate with what I'm sharing in the book about these traits, how they are both a catalyst for growth, because these traits equip leaders to grow, but counterintuitively and very interestingly, they also play against their own growth.
I found them very reflective for myself. I could certainly relate to a lot of the characteristics of these traits. I found them very helpful. So yeah, thanks for that. And how would you say that these traits have shaped how leaders, and generally, from what you've seen over the last year, with clients that you've been engaged with, how are these things impacting clients over the course of this year?
So as I've been observing these clients from the distance, I try to map how each one of these traits equipped them to pursue an aspiration that they had, a longing that they had, or a frustration that they wanted to overcome. So my findings have been based on the coaching that I've had, the trainings that I've had, but also interviews that I've been having. And as I kept speaking with leaders, there were three recurring themes that were appearing, that are three dimensions that I identified. So one of them is these leaders wanted to optimize their talents, their ideas into making a difference, into driving work that is meaningful, and having an impact in their organizations, and that they were realizing their potential. And as some of them say, the other element is how they could become their best version of who they were. So how they could reach the next level of growth, the next level of responsibility in their careers, how they could inspire their teams to also reach those levels. And then there was an aspiration / a frustration, because I think there is always in an aspiration, on the other side is a frustration, that they weren't growing quickly enough, as at the speed at which they would like. They felt that they were held back by the culture or the political structure or other people's mindset, or people resisting change, or lack of alignment. So there was something about them wanted to go quicker, but that not being possible because of the ecosystem. So then I identified how these traits mapped out to these three frustrations / desires in terms of driving more impact and making a difference in the world, reaching higher levels of performance, and then going quicker in the system in which they're operating. And each one of these traits, I saw that, or I started to see how they could be mapped to each one of these dimensions. So the traits about limitless curiosity and inquisitiveness, and then think big and question the limits, is that element of driving more impact, challenging the status quo. The traits around raising the bar, being multi-talented, being versatile, being over-scheduled, is about that eagerness to master their performance in a world that is constantly changing, that is complex, in which they are having increasing demands, how they can be the best at the best of their potential. And then the last two, the self-reliance, the determination part, and the sense of urgency to step into the future, match that dimension around momentum, about wanting to go faster, overcoming barriers, and then going quicker and faster to the future that they wanted to create and grasp.
I found for myself that sense of urgency definitely resonating a lot with me in the sense that I think I've put a lot of additional pressure on teams, etc., this year because of these great ideas that we're trying to move very quickly towards, and it just never feels fast enough. The sense of urgency to get things done, to expedite a situation, or to get that opportunity is definitely something that I reflected on as being a key trait that I've seen showing up with myself personally this year, and that raising the bar of standards and excellence. And the conflict between just those two, for myself, for anyone who reads through the publication, and you've got them all neatly laid out, just to highlight there, and I'll put it on the screen as well. But it was so interesting to see how even some of these traits act as their own counterweights to some other traits. So in me wanting to ensure that I'm raising the bar of standard and excellence, my need to want to move really quickly often ended up impacting on the quality that I was hoping to be achieving. So really great to be able to sit and reflect back on the year and think to myself, how did I show up across these traits, and where are the conflicts between the traits that I have? And I think the book really did a great job of highlighting that, and as a tool for leadership to use. You also mentioned this concept of the leadership box, Susanna. I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about this concept to everyone and how these traits end up creating the so-called box.
Yeah. So the leadership box, so the book, you have shown a table, but the book is full of drawings and sketches that I've drawn in my client sessions and in the training that I've done. I'm someone quite visual. I'm not an artist, so my drawings look like a 6-year-old kid wrote them. But at the end of the day, I think they are actually they are doing their work in terms of representing visually concepts that sometimes can be abstract. And I play with a metaphor of that leaders or any human at any moment in time, we are in a box, in a black box that limits the results we can create. Anything can be, any person can be in that box at any moment in time, just because the way we are wired, our conceptions, perceptions, habits is not good or bad, but we need to know that it's limited. It's limiting, and if we want to create new results, we need to understand how to break out of that box, challenging our perceptions, our mindset, and the way we are behaving, so that we start seeing new possibilities. And this box is unique to anyone based on how we are conditioned. But I saw that these traits, the leaders who embrace these traits, they could fall into traps without realizing that were limiting them in the box. And the beauty of these traits is a bit of what you have said, that these traits are, when you read them, there are leaders that say, oh, I love to have these traits because these traits are helping me. I'm a bar racer, I'm inquisitive, and I think big, and I want to grasp the future. And the beauty about this is how these traits can propel us to grow at a personal level and have an impact in our organizations. But at the same time, they play like a double-edged sword that can also us. And this is the books that I mentioned. Without realizing, despite the individual conditioning that each person has, these traits can both equip you to grow, but also if you don't challenge them, they are going to trap you in a box, preventing you from creating higher results that are important for you and your organization. So if you want to break out of this box towards the next level of results, fulfillment, significance, you need to understand how you first operate at an individual level. But if you have these traits, it's also understanding how they can play against you so that you master them and channel them differently in order to grow in your career and professional journey.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it resonates so much with, every time we interview a lot of thought leaders around leadership, one of the key things that always stands out is the authenticity of the leader. And in order for a leader to be authentic, they really need to know themselves, the way they act, the way they respond to things. And it's about shining that spotlight within their mind to help them understand why they react to certain things the way they do, etc. And again, this is just another really great example of how, these traits that, you've highlighted that lead to performance and transformation and impact. And the other one was impact, momentum. That was the one. We'll talk about those in a minute. But how, again, it's about understanding that you have a lot of these elements in you as an insatiable leader, but understanding the trade-offs that you're making by being very strong in one, and how do you need to find that balance? Am I interpreting the book and the application of it in the right ways? I want to just check with you, right?
No, definitely. And I think what's very important, and for me is the beauty of leadership development, is that, of course, there are some moments in which you need to learn new skills that you need to develop as you grow. But for me, the beauty of this book, for me, it's a beauty because I'm on the other side of helping leaders to channel them. But as an insatiable leader myself, and when these leaders have these traits, what's happening is that your own strengths are playing against you. And that's something that's very hard to digest and to challenge and channel. And for me, that's the unique lens that we are not so used to be brought in terms of what's equipping you to grow, and the strengths that you think are driving you forward are the same ones that kind of stop you. And if you don't understand how that's happening, you may be tripping over your developmental edges, blocking you from growing.
So the leadership box really is your you can sometimes not realize you're even in the box until you've taken the time to reflect on your 6 traits and identified how they are in ways sometimes boxing you in, right? So the box is really the shadow aspects of these leadership traits, and most of us might not even be aware of the fact we're in this box until we've managed to reflect on these. Another element of that was in order for leaders to be transformative, you mentioned 3 dimensions of growth, and that was impact being one, performance being the other, and momentum being the final one. So those 3 elements. Mm-hmm. So how have leaders in your mind balanced the impact, performance, and momentum over the last year that you've been engaged with?
Yeah, so just to explain what each one of those means. So these dimensions map to those desires that individual leaders have when I've interviewed them and I've seen them in coaching session, in terms of, I want to make a difference, I want to be at my best, and I want to gain that agility and momentum through my system. I also realized that those aspirations and those ambitions match what's needed in the world at the moment for companies to stay ahead. So for me, impact is that ability of leaders and organizations of creating solutions, services, products that are competitive and are aligned to what the world needs, their industry needs, in a world that it's in constant change and the needs are constantly evolving. Performance is the element of how do I create those results of those services, products, initiatives at the best quality in a world that is constantly changing, that is more complex, in which I'm having higher demands. Because if I don't deliver to the best of my capacity, me and my team, the market is going to rule me out and my company. And then momentum is how quick I implement those visions at the highest standards of quality. So because if I don't do that, I don't stay ahead and I stay behind a market that's constantly changing. And sometimes the key challenges that I've seen as leaders seek to master these 3 dimensions, as I think companies need to master them if they want to stay ahead, is that sometimes we are trapped in the performance dimension, if hitting the results, in executing those visions, but not always we are putting our efforts into driving new competitive visions, new competitive services, innovating about what can be done differently, how have the needs of the customers changed, and are our product, services, initiatives matching those? Are we a reference in our industry? So sometimes the performance variable of results numbers can take us away from developing solutions that are needed by the business ecosystem in which you're operating. And then another thing that I see is the momentum element, which is arriving quicker and faster to that future that I want to grasp. It doesn't always happen to our desires or our needs, because we need to move a system of people, the culture, technological systems that is not always moving as fast as we would like. So as leaders seek to gain engagement, gain buy-in, it doesn't always happen at that level. So sometimes we're hitting the numbers, but we are not staying ahead in that competitive market with competitive solutions at the speed at which we need to create them.
And so you mentioned as well that there's those six traits map to these dimensions as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the way that I see the mapping is that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, and thinking big are traits that equip leaders to grow in the dimension of impact, of developing new solutions that the world needs to bring it further on, changing industries, improving what customers need. So that inquisitiveness of always be looking to source of knowledge, ideas, trends are going to equip leaders to frame what's needed in the market. And that trait of thinking big, what's going to equip them with is how do we challenge what we have been doing up until now? And then how do we create something new that is going to enable us to be ahead, to have more impact or to build more meaningful solutions? Then the dimension of performance, the traits that I've seen playing most and impacting those in that dimension of performance is being a bar racer, so raising the standards of excellence and constantly aiming for what's next. How can I do better? How can I challenge myself? The same way that impact is challenging the status quo of the world, the variable of performance is I'm challenging my own limits and how can I grow there. So if someone is raising the bar of excellence and questioning their own limits, they're going to find ways in which they're going to deliver to those standards. And the other trait in this dimension is that aspect of being multi-talented or being over-scheduled and ultra-capable, because these leaders are not only able to increase the results in one variable, but they are versatile. They can operate in multiple realities because they are so curious as well. Each one of the traits is a bit direct related. They have developed their skills and their abilities across different fields that equip them to really grow in this versatile reality that we are facing. And then lastly, the dimension of momentum, the traits that are playing in this dimension are that self-determination to break through obstacles and how I have an obstacle between where I'm now, my present, and the future, and how I'm determined and resilient to break through it. And I don't take like an obstacle, like a barrier not to keep moving forward to the future that I want. And then that sense of urgency to really grasp that future that keeps moving farther away, which is very exciting, seeing all the evolution of all the things we can create and what can be possible. But for leaders who have this trait, it's quite frustrating seeing how you see a future that is moving farther away from you when you cannot move your present, your system, your team, your peers at the same speed that the future is moving forward. So that sense of urgency is really equipping leaders to be constantly focusing on the future and with their minds on the future to grasp it when other people are not yet envisioning what they are capable of.
And would you say, I mean, what in all the dealings that you've had across this year, again, where do you think leadership are sort of have blind spots? What's like the biggest blind spots you've seen across the various leaders that you've met? You know, is there a more common sort of trait that seems to be unnurtured or perhaps a little bit too aggressive, if that, you know, for lack of a better word? Is there any particular trend or anything that you've seen over this year that stands out towards those traits and those different dimensions?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on the person. So I can go one by one how each one of these traits can play like a double-edged sword, as I was explaining later. And it's true that as I reflected over this year, and also what I've experienced this year with the amount of information that's out there, it has made me also reflect how things play with these traits. So the trait around inquisitiveness and limitless curiosity. So from one side, we are being exposed to that source of information, new trends, new knowledge, new courses that is nurturing us with new ideas that we can bring into the world. But the dark side of that is that sometimes we keep absorbing and we never reflect about how we land with these ideas, what's meaningful for us on these ideas, to really choose one, two, and frame them in a way that advance our organizations. And that's actually something that I've seen in many leaders, how we are trapped in all the new technology that's coming out, all the changes that are happening in AI, in new developments, and how we can be more overwhelmed or curious about which ones those are, that rather thinking, how am I going to take one of those and apply it to my ecosystem, my team, and which one of those is going to make really the difference. And something that I see as well is we can be trapped in being reactive to, okay, let's see what comes next, or who is the next person who is going to share something exciting about this, versus me being proactive, saying this is what my customers need, my team members need, my peers need, and I'm going to drive it based on what I'm observing. So being sometimes so focused on the outside, take as a focus out from the inside, really connecting to what am I observing. That can really equip me to create solutions that align with what my ecosystem needs. So that's in terms of the curiosity one. And there is another one, which is the think big and question the limits, which I've seen also played a lot, because with all these new ideas that are coming, obviously we see many more possibilities of how the future could look like. And we think big about how we could implement different changes into how we are operating in our organizations with our clients. But obviously, the bigger we think, the more obstacles we need to overcome. And to overcome these obstacles, this means that we need to engage people. There are many people who still resist change, or this year has been quite uncertain, also with the national elections in the UK, in the US. So obviously that uncertainty can make people more risk averse. And the trap can be that we think big and we see all these possibilities, but the bigger we think, the more held back we are by those obstacles. And if we don't channel that trade in a way that enable us to overcome those obstacles, the status quo is never changed, and we keep on the same pattern. So probably those are the two traits in which I've seen the most play maybe this year.
Right, thank you for that. Yeah, I think I've seen that as well, and I think I've seen that the endless curiosity and unstoppable learners being very, very much a problem for some time, actually, in the fact that, we often, digital transformation came, and it's been around for a long time, but it really spiked up in terms of the hype meter, and you'd see people throwing a whole bunch of different approaches and a whole bunch of new things in, but not really taking that step back. And where's the one thing or the two things or the three things we should be focusing our efforts on to really drive the most impact amidst all this noise? So I can relate a lot to that in what I've seen as well. Absolutely. And yeah, the thinking big one's a challenge as well. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of change fatigue. We're in very interesting times. So if we're stuck in these two areas, Susanna, or others for that matter, in the 6 traits, how does a leader get unstuck?
Yeah,
2024's happened. We look through these traits. We can see where we've not shown up at our best. We can see where we've overshowed up, perhaps, and we're in more of the dark side of the trait than we are in the benefit of the trait.
Yeah.
How do you, as a leader, go through this, look at it, and then say, right, well, how do I get unstuck from this moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm gonna come back to the concept that you share about the fishbowl, because for me is if leaders could take something from the book or from their own leadership habits, is really creating that space for reflection. So the metaphor that I use with the fishbowl is that I always picture the leaders I'm working with or that I'm talking to in their ocean, full of sharks, with competitors and their peers with different views, and their team members sometimes more or less aligned, and the demands and the targets. So they are swimming in that ocean of demands, and sometimes a lot of challenges and difficulties. And if they want to make significant changes to lead differently in that ocean, they can only do it if they take perspective from it. So the visual is that space when they step out from the dark waters of the ocean into a visual that is clean, where they can reflect, when they can ask questions that are going to make them focus in the areas in which they can actually action and make a difference, and look at all the situation from a different perspective. And with those new insights, they can then jump out of the fishbowl into the ocean. And the ocean hasn't changed, but they have from the fishbowl, right? So coming back to these two traits, for me, it's about is what you said, right? So it's really a stepping out from that amount and overwhelm of information into focus and consistency. If I could only choose one thing, I love making questions about 2 things, 3 things, one thing, like you said, which ones would they be and why? And it's really turning the focus to the action instead of the ideation, because what I've seen with leaders that are inquisitive and love learning is that they can very easily stay in the world of their minds of what can be possible, what I want to learn, this is what I've learned, but then there is not a transition towards action from something that happens. And sometimes they are so focused. This is something I mentioned before, of what others are saying and what's happening in the outside world, then I don't connect with how do I look at things internally. So it's really turning the focus inwards instead of outwards, and really connecting what are the trends that I'm observing that are most relevant, for example, to my clients. What do actually my clients need? If I could only pick one of these trends, which one would it be and why? So it's really turning the focus of, based on my own experience and my knowledge, what's something that I pick to then action instead of the market telling me that. So that's one thing. And then for the other trait about thinking big and questioning the limits, the exercise is the same. It's really stepping out and seeing the obstacles from a distance to see how do I need to lead myself differently, engage with my environment differently, and seeing the barriers that I'm seeing in my ocean from the fishbowl, because this way I'll gain new angles from which I'm looking at the problem and gain new solutions to address it.
Right. So leaders need to be intentional about putting good chunks of time, a month, wherever they can, to get in the fishbowl. So block their calendar out.
Yeah.
Turn off their mobiles, close their outlooks or whatever they're using. And they need to sit down and intentionally sit and reflect. Maybe use your traits as a checklist. Consider how they've shown up. Which amongst all the things that are happening, and sit and just reflect and understand exactly where they need to be changing, their approach, etc. And I mean, this could be facilitated through coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, whatever it might be. But it's really just to enable thinking space to process all the noise in the ocean and reflect on yourself using these traits as a guideline, if you will, or a spotlight again, to ensure that when you go back into the ocean, you've got a bit more clearer vision and you kind of recalibrate it and you sort of know what you're going after is what I'm hearing. Is that?
Yeah. And as I hear you, there is a concept that also I explain in the book, which is developing that inner compass. Sometimes our actions are at the mercy of all the outside world, and obviously we need to be connected to that, because it's what is going to dictate how we set our strategy, how we lead our team. So it's very important to understand what's happening in the world. But the problem is that if we always listen to what's happening outside ourselves, we don't develop an inner compass that's going to guide our directions and our actions and our decisions.
Well, that has been very informative, Susanna. Thank you so much. As always, it was wonderful to chat to you and to learn about these traits and how we've shown up after the last year. And I think a good idea is to get the book, read up on the traits, understand the traits, and put that time for reflection in over the holiday period, and consider how you showed up in those traits over the course of the year, and look at how you're able to then start. There's lots. Let's not forget to mention there's lots of guidelines around how to get out of the stuck and how to move from the dark side of each trait into the good side. So all the guidance is in here, but it's a great idea to sit down and actually put time aside to do the exercise and work through this in your fishbowl, if you will. And so that's what we've learned on the Search for Clarity today. We will be having our next episode in the new year, so no surprise as to what the theme will be for then. So I hope everyone has a wonderful festive season, and looking forward to catching you all again. Thank you, Susanna, for your time again, and look forward to catching you in our next episode on the Search for Clarity. Thanks everyone. Take care. Goodbye.